Myke Seatown here, Dead in Hip Hop, here to give you another solo album review. And today I'm going to talk about an album that you guys have been hitting me up about quite a bit. And I've been putting it off because I wanted to give this album the sufficient number of listens before I decide to open my mouth and discuss it. But yeah, I'm finally ready to talk about Atmosphere's Southsiders. What I've always loved about Atmosphere, outside of Ant's incredible production, is the way Slug has always spoke for me. Whether it was about alcohol or heartbreak or just self-loathing in general. I always found myself in so many of his lyrics. The difference with Slug lately is the angle has changed a little bit. Slug is no longer the heartbroken alcoholic kid with a distaste for whack rappers. Now he's a content adult with children and what seems like a relatively comfortable life. So when you decide to put this album on, what you really have to think about is, are you actually ready or interested in listening to an album that kind of revolves around the idea of contentment versus anger or angst? This is a record made by a grown man for grown men and women. Starts off with Camera Thief, and I am instantly like, wow, this beat is dope as hell. I love what Ant did with the production here. I also love what Slug did with each verse. I especially like the second verse where he's kind of talking about childhood and his past. Ferris wheel, give rides. The scars healed in time to get high. Lock the doors and hide the keys. Let's go describe how to climb a tree. I also really like the line, if I had a time machine, I'd probably use it like a vacuum and try to clean. I mean, clearly he's talking about going back in time and fixing past mistakes. I just like the flip that he used there. Another line I really liked was the one where he says, I'll be in court, hold the pitchfork before I let the contest outlast the sport. Not sure if this is a metaphor for hip-hop or just life in general, but either way, it's a dope-ass line. Contests are competitive, but at the same time, they're short-lived. They don't last very long. The sport itself could last forever. The idea of the sport could last forever. So with hip-hop, I think he could be saying that he's not going to let these, I call them hit-and-run rappers, but these rappers that jump in the game for a quick in-out, he's not going to let them become more important than hip-hop itself, hip-hop as a whole, which is dope. Or he could be saying that he's not going to let life's little small obstacles destroy the overall existence, which is the sport. Either way, whichever one of those meanings he was really putting behind that lyric, I think it's dope. From there, the album stays pretty consistent. There are some really good songs like The World Might Not Live Through the Night, Bitter, Kanye West, Let Me Know That You Know What You Want Now, which I love the last verse of that song. I run with kleptos, I still wear big clothes, hold my dick the way you hold your crystals. Those are the kinds of lines that I love from Slug, where he's funny, but he's still braggadocious, and he's just smooth with it, It was a perfect album closer, too, by the way. Then there are certified bangers like Southsiders, and January on Lake Street. Both of those songs were just head knockers, right? Southsiders is just a raw-ass hip-hop song where Slug is just spitting about his irritation. I'm not quite sure if it's with other rappers or just people in the area in general that just don't seem to have a mind of their own. And it's just dope, man. I think Slug is really going off on that track. January on Lake Street is another raw-ass hip-hop song. The beat is super nice with that piano riff and those really clean drums. And I really like the way Slug flows over the song. He seems probably the most aggressive on this song than on the rest of the album. Then you have a song like Flicker, which is a beautiful, beautiful tribute to Michael Idea Larson. And it's probably one of the best tribute songs I've heard for a fallen a fallen rapper or a person in general. Slug is no stranger to doing his own type of tribute songs, but this one is a little bit different. I think Slug is so great with words that he doesn't even have to mention Idea's name in the entire song for you to know exactly who he's talking about if you know his relationship with Idea. He really paints a picture of just how close he was with Idea and the type of person that Idea was. How he wrote such serious songs. Now I'm trying to write a song for a dead songwriter that wrote their own songs about life and death. But he still showed Slug how to be fun and laugh and be happy. And these are not the things that are always in the forefront. When you hear about a rapper like Idea. There are even songs on this album that I didn't really like at first until I listened to him more. Like Misinterpret. With Misinterpret, it just didn't grab me and hold me at first. I of course related to the topic of totally misunderstanding women. But the song itself just didn't really interest me at first. It was a bit too happy sounding. But after listening to it more, Slug's words really sucked me in. And once again, I felt like he was speaking for me in the way of, talking to a girl, hearing every single word she says, but then at the end of the discussion, realizing that she may as well have been the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, 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 wah. Nothing she said made a single bit of sense. And you guys are not going to sit here and act like you don't know what I'm talking about. One thing to notice here are the beats. The beats are absolutely fantastic. For me, the whole album gives the feeling of an open mic. Slug is that smooth ass poet with a cigarette, just chilling, just giving you these dope ass intense words, and Ant is in the background providing you with dope ass beats to accompany the mood that Slug is setting. Throughout the album, you get some lines that are fantastic, like been a few years since my last cigarette, but if you put your finger inside the flask, it's still wet. But you also get some lines that seem a bit flat for Slug, like now pretend you're not alone and put your hands in the air like a drone, or girl, would you give me a kiss for a fistful of flowers? This could be ours. Now these aren't bad lines, they're just not great lines, While I don't agree that Slug sounds uninspired, I will definitely agree that he sounds different than we're used to. There's not quite as much of the sarcastic and cynical attitude that we love Slug for. Instead of him being the troubled young man, he's now speaking to the troubled young man, which is an interesting switch up. The album, to me, sounds like Slug wandering through the streets of Minneapolis in the freezing cold and just thinking about his life, thought by thought, contemplating how he got from there to where he is now. Or maybe he's got someone with him, and he's telling that person these stories of his life and his thought patterns, But, at the end of the day, we can agree that Slug has changed. And we either have to accept that change and move with him or just leave him alone. Like he says, unless you slept a night in my nest, you shouldn't waste your breath to criticize my mess. Overall, I really enjoy this album. I don't quite love it the way I loved some of the other records, but I still think it's a fantastic listen. This album is not one to instantly grab you, and make you love it. It's definitely a grower. I had to listen to this multiple times just to think it was even decent. And now I think the album is absolutely fantastic. Once you get behind Ant's beats and Slug's way of being blunt but still being slightly coded, this record turns out to be a fantastic addition to 2014's great year of hip hop. Path to Atmosphere has been a really interesting one for me, starting, in my opinion, with When Life Hands You Lemons, You Paint That Shit Gold. You saw a slight change in the sound of Atmosphere, but then once you got to Family Sign, everything, in my opinion, shifted. And it's interesting watching the progression of Ant with his production going from the more sample based, moving into like the almost electro based, to the more live instrumentation sound that he's in now. It's also interesting watching the progression of Slug from an angsty young man to a content and semi-happy adult. So for me, this album is almost a sign of hope, right? Slug was the voice of the disenfranchised youth, and now he's showing that he's made it through, right? And he's now speaking to those youth and saying, hey, man, maybe it's really not that bad. Or even if it is that bad, it's not going to be that bad forever. So there you have it. I think this is a great record. I think you guys should give it a shot. I think this record will appeal to a lot of different types of hip-hop fan. This is a fantastic addition to Atmosphere's catalog. Once again, you can't expect Atmosphere to keep remaking God Loves Ugly. You can't expect Slug and Ant to stay in the exact same place. They've been in the game for 20 years now. At some point, we have to accept that our heroes are going to change. But that's it. Let me know what you guys thought. Leave some comments in the little section down there. And yeah, as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you, and I will see you guys next time. Alright? Peace, bitches.